Welcome to Sales Training for Podcasters, the podcast designed to better your sales process. We'll be sharing tools, tips, and techniques, whether you love sales or hate sales. If you've got a product or service to sell and a podcast, you've come to the right place. Now, here's your hosts, podcast strategists Doug Sandler and JJ Flizanes.
Mike C-Roc is known for his boldness and his ability to help others propel themselves into untapped levels of success. He's the CEO of People Building Inc. and behind the What Are You Made Of movement and the host of the same name podcast. He's got a book rolling out soon called Rocket Fuel. C-Roc, welcome to the show.
Doug, thanks for having me. I always start every interview I go to with gratitude because I'm just, really, really thankful for the opportunity that I get to share with you and your audience. And I'm just humbled that people are willing to hear my voice and want to hear my voice. So,
well, what's so cool about it? My pleasure. I'm happy to have you here, man. And this is going to air on a few different shows that we have: Turnkey Podcast, Sales Training for Podcasters, and The Nice Guys on Business. And, what's really cool about it is when I had a meeting with my assistant and I said, all right, here's what I want to do. I want to find podcasters that have at least 100 reviews, that have at least 100 episodes out, because that to me is one of those metrics. Unless people are buying reviews, you can't buy episodes. You got to create the content. So for somebody that has staying power, I think that's a key indicator of success, not just in the podcasting space, but in anything. And maybe I want to start with a question that you ask everybody that comes on your show is, what are you made of? You've probably been asked this a million times, but what are you made of, Mike?
I'm made of rocket fuel, man. I mean, I have this thing flowing through me that creates an opportunity for me to be stubborn on anything I go after. And what I mean by stubborn, I say that instead of persistence, because persistence has a lullaby effect. We hear it so much, it goes in one ear and out the other. So stubborn to me, and if you look up the definition, there's two words there that really get me going, which says perversely unyielding. So perversely unyielding is the way I want to be when I'm going after something. And that's what's flowing through my veins, man. Rocket fuel. So if you think about stubborn being like a negative word, it has a negative connotation. You got to understand, stubborn is not the wrong thing when it's on the right thing. So that's what I'm made of.
No, it's totally cool and a great answer. And, I don't necessarily look at it as stubborn as a negative word. I think of things like persistence, consistency, tenacity. I mean, those are the kind of words that come into my mind when I start thinking about that. And I want to talk about sales for a second, because a couple of the things that we want to really focus on for a moment is, I know you've had some really great, successes in your life in the mortgage business and with your current coaching business and the things that you have done. Tell me about the selling cycle when it comes to stubbornness or tenacity or consistency.
Well, first of all, I started selling back when I was 8 years old. I lived on a golf course and I would go over to the ponds and get balls out and then sell them to the golfers. And the owner of the golf course, this old man I think his name was Smedley. He used to get in a golf cart and chase us. And so I was a little conflicted of like, wait a minute. I thought this is a good thing. I'm helping golfers. I'm making money doing it. But you're not supposed to be on private property, I guess. But we kept going back despite being chased. So I think, and the reason I said that has a negative connotation is because, I dealt with some abuse when I was a kid. And I was told all the time, you're a hardhead, you're stubborn. Like it was coming from a bad place. And to me, that I grew up thinking that had a negative connotation, despite the fact that I kept doing it anyway, because I'm stubborn. So, but now I wear it like a badge of honor. And, but in the sales cycle and in prospecting in general, you need to be relentless and obsessed with going after things. But first of all, you need to know how to do it. So to me, I had a sales meeting today with my team and I'm like, guys, we need to know what we're doing. And we need to be obsessed with learning our profession. Mm-hmm. Because in life, we're either going towards a goal or away from a goal, towards survival or away from survival, building or destroying. There's no in between. Yeah. Every decision we make goes towards that. So if you're not making the conscious decision to be obsessed about learning your craft, be obsessed with getting the most practice with your scripts and your sales process, then you're not committed to survival. As far as I'm concerned. So I think it's important to be perversely unyielding in your mission, whatever you set your sights on, to be relentless in that fashion.
I was listening to a couple of episodes, and I'm just recently I'm a newfound fan of yours. Just listening to some of your podcast episodes, and I was listening to your welcome episode, which is always one that I go back to because I want to hear, like, hey, look, when you first pick up that microphone for the first time, you come from awfully humble beginnings. I mean, we all do. I can remember 1,200 episodes ago, just opening up that microphone. It just sucks. It's like, I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I was like cool as shit, man. I was like so excited about my podcast, and me and my co-hosts we're doing all our stuff. And I listen back and I'm like, oh God, I can't believe I said some of the shit I said. So I listened back to your early episodes and some since then, and you talk in that early episode about the rocky relationship that you had with your dad, and you, I guess, living with him, and then deciding at some point early on in your life that you were done, and taking the $100 and throwing it at you basically and say, good luck living on the streets. And while my relationship with my father didn't have that kind of, I guess there was some sort of, maybe some anger from your dad, or maybe some animosity from you as you were walking out the door. But I didn't have a great relationship with my father. Very similar to you. My parents were divorced at a very young age. I never went to live with my dad. I almost felt a little bit of resentment that I never had the opportunity to really get close to him. How much do you think that your current day self, whether it's through stubbornness, tenacity, consistency, how much do you think that your current day self was shaped by your early relationship with your dad?
Well, a lot. I mean, I thank him in this book I'm about to release, Rocket Fuel. I thank him in the beginning of the book because, I tell the story all the time, and I know some people get pissed off about me sharing the story, and that's tough.
Let me just tell you, just in a way, and I know these aren't your words, these are mine. Fuck them. You tell your story, man. You tell your story the way you need to.
I'll just share with you. I mean, why not? My stepmom was the one that had some issues, and she took a lot of her issues out on me. Her issues with my mom had, all kinds of stuff. And I was threatened and verbally abused and mentally abused by her. And she, to this day, she's 60 something. I'm 40 something. And I still get that sick feeling thinking about it, but she's reached out to people that I've been on podcasts with and said I'm a liar and this and that. And I'm like, totally I never even mentioned her name prior to her doing that or talked about her.
Right.
So she just showed her true colors. And I'm not doing this to talk about them. I'm doing this for other people. I'm not doing it for myself even. So when I share my story, it's all about inspiring people and connecting with people so that they can see that, I was committed talking about the first episodes. I was committed to sharing my journey with people because I found out that the journey to success is often invisible. People see successful people and they don't see all the things that they've gone through. And I wanted to share that as I went on this mission. I wanted to share that with people. As I go through this, the ups and downs, this past year, having $100,000 stolen from me, telling these stories and showing how I convert things into rocket fuel for my future. I don't let anything stop me. So I forget about your first question. Oh, how did my dad's relationship. So I thanked him in this book because my dad taught me what hard work is. He taught me how to be successful in business. My dad was my hero. He had big forearms and rough hands. And I always looked up to him for how hard of a worker he was. He was a mason and laying brick and block and pouring concrete and all that. And he always carried a wad of $100 bills around in his pocket with a rubber band around it. And I just thought that was the coolest thing, and he used to flash it and show us what that got us. And, but when I did, and maybe he felt betrayed and let down, but I'm not going to stay in a house for I was there for 3 years being abused and threatened and having my mom and my family talked about like it wasn't that. It was just not a good environment. So when I decided to leave there, my dad got served with court papers for custody for my mom. He was probably let down. And that's for him not seeing the big picture. That's on him. He needs to figure that out. I don't harbor any ill feelings or anything like that. Matter of fact, we had a relationship that we got back together for a little while before it was ruined again by someone. So I'll just leave that alone, but tell you that everything was shaped by that because what I've done now since I was 11 for 30 some years is fueled off that one moment.
Yeah.
Like I don't hold resentment from it, but I use it and store it in my tank instead of my trunk. Because if you store it in your trunk, it weighs you down. Your tank, you can convert it into rocket fuel to propel,
Yeah. I would say for sure, Mike, when it comes to that, you're a better man than me. I've had a challenge, and I'm 56 years old. I've had a challenge my entire life and with the relationship that I had with my dad. And it's only been recently, since this most recent relationship that I'm in with JJ, that I begin to really understand a little bit more about just what you said. Instead of putting it in your trunk, putting it in your tank. I love that analogy, because I think it's so cool to be able to use that as fuel to your fire and get yourself up and going. And sometimes I wear it as an anchor, and I know I shouldn't. It's like step into it, as JJ says many times, you use this. I mean, you have the ability to use this to your advantage, not to your disadvantage. I completely agree. So hats off to you for discovering that and working through it.
Yeah. And it's all about responsibility, Doug. I mean, when you have 100% responsibility, you're in control. And to the degree you give up responsibility, you give up control to other people. And I don't want to be a puppet to someone else, being the puppeteer. You're either the puppet master or you're the puppet in life. And so I choose to be the puppet master and be able to control my life. And what I found is that if I use this as fuel and not resentment and not that anchor in the trunk, I've been able to control and propel things and become unstoppable. And this is so powerful that that's why I wrote the book. I want to share this with people. I want to get this message to people and share that, look, every decision we make, we're either going towards our ideal life or away from it. And it's our decision if we just simplify it down to that.
So Mike's book, Rocket Fuel, is available. We'll make sure we put a real big link in the show notes at the MikeCroc.com. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes to that as well. It's pre-order right now, right? Has this thing been released yet? Yeah,
MikeCroc.com/book. That's the book website. MikeCroc.com/book. That's pre-sale right now. It's coming out anytime now. We're just the final editing's wrapping up. We took a little longer in that stage than we anticipated, but we're having a book launch party in South Beach, Miami, right before 10X Growth Con, March 11th.
Awesome.
So, look, Doug, this is something that I got to get across to your audience as well. When you want something in life, if you get a real clear picture of what you want, visualize it, and then make a commitment and decision to go after it with intention, magic things happen. Like, I'm an ordinary dude from outside of Philly. I live in Ocean City now. Just an ordinary guy, man. And the superpower that I've found is among that with Rocket Fuel as well is clarity and commitment, along with the Rocket Fuel law, which is to turn any setbacks or anything that's thrown at you to stop you or slow you down and convert it into fuel to accomplishing some crazy things like a party in South Beach. That's like Will Smith stuff. Like, that's not not Mike Ciorrocco from, but now I'm starting to believe this stuff now, like staying grounded, but believing I can accomplish anything, not with an ego, but with abilities that were given to me by our creator to be able to inspire and help other people.
Let's talk about sales for a moment. I definitely want to do that because I think that's probably an area that you have excelled at through the years and through your career. As it relates to sales, what is something that you would advise any beginner to know before they even start in the sales game?
Well, to me, I think where people go wrong with sales is on the prospecting side of things and then follow up. So prospecting is not to close the sale on the first call. If you do, that's great. But people get this mixed up. Prospecting, the number one problem salespeople have and businesses, and number two problem. One is nobody knows who you are or what you do. Number two is if they did know you, they forgot about you. Mm. Those are the two things you need to overcome in sales and business. And as soon as you overcome those things, that's when your pipeline grows. And so in order to do that, how do you do that? Well, prospecting. Prospecting is the act of getting out of obscurity with people that can buy your product. So when you prospect, whether you're introducing yourself in person to someone, sending the DM or phone call, your job is not to close them on a sale at that moment. It is strictly to get out of obscurity. Tell them who you are, what you do, and then ask if they know anybody. That's it. And then move on. No matter what is said by them, whether they say, no, I don't know anyone, or yes, I do, or whatever it is, you do what you can there, and then you move on. From there, you're out of obscurity for the moment. That's the spark. Then from there, the follow-up is the important part to throw gasoline on that spark. And that's where most people just don't do the work. They don't prospect, or they put too much emphasis on getting a sale on that prospecting call, and then they quit and get discouraged. So if you approach it the right way with follow-up, then your pipeline grows and you make a lot of money.
So talk to the guy that's out there or the woman that's out there that is a pro in the world of sales right now. What's something that every pro should know when it comes to selling?
Well, pros, bottom line is that you should never get complacent and comfortable with your knowledge. and the info that you know. So for pros, like I used to grind. I used to go and door to door. I used to do leads and driving all around in-home sales and all that stuff. And when it comes down to it, really, I wanted to stop doing that. That's a good way to cut your teeth into the business, but really create an attraction model where people are coming to me. Like I'm not trying to, my sales duty is not to teach somebody or sell them on an idea why they should work with the product that I have. I want to be able to market and advertise so they already know. So when they come to me, they're like, C-Roc, where do we sign? If you can create that model, that's the key to prosperity. So for me right now in my business, the mortgage business aside, but for the C-Roc brand, the clothing line that we're starting, the coaching business and training business and performance coaching, it's all about getting a bunch of free value out there all over social media, being omnipresent so that when I have an offer for someone, I put it out there, they just sign up and they're like, yeah, where do we sign? You don't want any more money? Because the value's there. That's the idea. And you have to be intentional with this. Doug, like I got to set this intention. Like, okay, what am I doing every day? Why am I doing podcasts? Why am I putting so much content everywhere and spending money on this and that for free? Like, why am I doing that? If I know I'm doing it for the reason of creating an attraction model, then that's what I'm going to get. But if I just randomly drift and just do it randomly and whatever, it's not going to be of anything. So, yeah, that's what I would tell them is be a sponge to knowledge and also try to create an attraction model for yourself.
So as it relates to podcasting, let's bring this sales game into the podcasting world. As it relates to podcasting, what do you think that some of the challenges that people have when it comes to connecting sales to their podcast content?
Well, like selling products from it, or
let's say, how does someone actually get to be successful at actually selling products and services through their podcast? If you're advising them, what do you tell them when it comes to podcasting and selling?
Well, people buy from people they trust, right? And then they have to see value. So to me, you have to get clear and have a vision of what you want to do with the podcast, what your intentions are, make that decision and commit to it. And then from that point on, every action that you take, word that you say, thought that you have needs to go in that direction. Now that sounds foundational and fundamental and simple. But we can't proceed past that if we don't have that part, right?
And most people don't even do that. You know, if you ask somebody, hey, what's the plan for your next 10 or 12 episodes, or what's the plan for your next 90 days of podcasting? Many people, they can't really tell you. I'm just going to create great content. I'm going to try to, throw out a call to action that's going to lead to a lead magnet to a landing page and see if I can get people, onto my list so I can sell them. And I think that is generally what people would, if they have a focused effort, that's where they think their focused effort is, and not necessarily on let's develop a plan over the next 60 or 90 days to actually make some impact here.
Right. And the other thing is that if you are bringing guests on in order to market to them, or start a relationship with them, I think it's very important to be intentional, and communicate your intentions to them up front.
Agreed.
Too many times I go on podcasts, they invite me on and I'm not sure what the heck's going on. And then I get on there and their intention is to work with me somehow. And like, not just a business relationship where we work on something together, but to sell me something.
Absolutely.
And a service. And, I don't have a problem with that, but be clear with your intentions up front, because, that's a bad feeling to go on a show and not know that's coming. And then, you can anticipate it some, but it's just not right. So at the end of the day, I think clear intentions, communicating that. And then if you have a product that you're going to be working on, selling from your podcast, I think that once you have that plan in place and you're gonna execute on that, to take action and do it. Get $1 for something. Like if you're not in sales before, or if you're starting a new product and you haven't sold, just get somebody to give you $1 for something, and that opens up the flow. Once you open up the flow, then you have access to more flow. But if you don't open that valve in the first place and you never take money or ask for money or try to close a sale, your pipe just doesn't have anything in it.
Completely agree.
So,
completely agree. And I love the thing that you said is that you should be was the word intentional? Was that that the word that you used? And I think that's so true. I mean, we talk about this as a part of, with many of our podcast coaching clients, we do talk about, look, if your monetization is coming from joint venture partnerships, or if it's coming from affiliate relationships, or it's coming from a guest to client strategy, you better have some intentionality about what you're doing. You can't put everybody into the same bucket there's guests, and we've talked about this. I know, Mike, you probably are aware of this, but you're going to have three types of guests that are going to come on your show. One of them that's going to help build the ego of the show or help build your influence. Yeah. You're going to have people that are going to help you build your community. And when I saw your social media following, I'm like, hey, this is a guy that's got a pretty big social media following. So, do a little background, see what's going on with people before you get them on your show. And you have guests that you use to help fill your bank account. And that doesn't mean necessarily just focus on selling them the products or services. There are great relationships that can come out of, out of every interview. And I think about the almost 900 interviews that I've done over the 1,200 on the Nice Guys on Business. And I think about that hidden gift that we continue to get over and over and over again. And that's the value of that guest sitting in the guest seat. That has been so much more valuable to me than I love my community, but it isn't just about selling products and services to your community. So I love the intentionality, and I appreciate you, saying that and defining that. I want to come back to the selling side for just 1 second. Where do you think that most people really struggle in the sales game? Is it their relationship with money, their relationship with selling, their pressure? Any idea where you think most people struggle with selling?
Yeah. I mean, everybody thinks that people think about them more than they think they do, or more than they actually do.
Man,
so that's true. Why being an animal, absolute obsessed animal with getting out there who you are and what you do to people, and then providing value to people. But that's the issue. Nobody's doing the work. Like, they don't want to make the calls. They don't want to send the DMs. Like, for me, I go absolutely crazy in the direct message department. Like, I'm reaching out to people constantly. Now Clubhouse is out. So when I get in a room, like, I attack a room. Like, if you see me in Clubhouse, I'm not just there to speak. I'm not just there to gain followers. I'm going through the whole room, tapping on the bios. If you're not familiar with Clubhouse, it's a stage platform where there's this audio stage. People are speaking on stage. You can go in these different rooms with different topics. And I hit the bio, and then it's linked to Instagram and Twitter accounts. And I'll go through there, and anybody that I see value that I can bring to them, or I can have value from them somehow, we can work a relationship. I'm messaging them. Like, I'm working like a maniac. It's like a duck that you see on top of the surface is floating, but under the water,
calm.
So that's what it's all about for me. And so I'm just obsessed in attacking different things.
No, I'm excited about your book coming out. I will be one of those pre-purchase guys, because I love to be able to, even if I'm not a really good cover to cover reader, but if I pick up like a book and start reading a chapter out of the book, and I get some motivation or inspiration out of the chapter, I think oftentimes that's worth the value of a $30 book. Is just, if I can pull one paragraph out of it that makes sense to me, or if I can take a quote and put it on my wall and live by that creed, even for a week or a month or a year, that's incredible. So
let me give you something on that. So first of all, thank you very much for any support. But one thing that I do with books is I'll read 10 pages in the morning and 10 pages at night. And that's a little tip for somebody that wants to start reading but just can't get through it. And what I found is that if I take little segments, it helps me comprehend and really be able to implement the things that I learned from the books. But if you do 10, that's 20 a day times 30 days, 600 pages a month. That's almost 2 books. And then that's 24 books a year. Now, the other thing is, I found, my stepfather taught me this, that the guy that came into my life when I was 11, his name was George, taught me to read more. But he also told me why I stopped reading books, because I would have half-written books all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it's because right before you quit, there's a segment or words that you didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't know the definition. You didn't comprehend, and you don't know that this is happening, but you just lose interest. So look up words. When you don't understand something, even if you think you do and it's not quite right, look it up. And so that little advice has got me like big time ways, into books. I read books like crazy. I read front to back. I have a problem with quitting in the middle of them now. And I'm always interested in, because I understand what I'm reading. So I don't know if that's your case. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, man, I appreciate that. I don't know that is actually why I just lose interest. I just do, and it's not like I lose interest in the author. I have some great friends that are authors, and I enjoy reading their books, but even still, sometimes I get like lost in I love the books like Who Moved My Cheese. It's a really easy, 60-page book. very, very easy to read the book. Parables are really good for me too. Maybe it's just up here. I'm still working on the stuff that's in my noggin.
Well, Doug, just try that. You don't know what's happening. I'm trying to this is something I realized, and I'm like, holy cow, let me check this, because there's no way I don't know what I'm reading. And I checked it and realized I would go back and be like, oh, this segment, I lost interest because it's just the craziest thing, man. So
no, I appreciate that. So tell me a little bit before we wrap today. Tell me a little bit about what your goal is with Rocket Fuel. Is it more as a try to reach the masses, people that may not be in a position to hire you as a full-time one-on-one coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's a credibility builder, but it's a world changer. Like when people get this, if you can imagine wanting something and you just can't get it, you keep getting stopped or slowed down. What's the reason? Well, this book will show you what I did in my life and what you can do in your life to proactively be able to convert setbacks that come your way. And so it's a world changer, man. It's to me, Grant wrote the foreword for it. He put in the foreword what Rocket Fuel meant to him in his life and his business. And Grant Cardone is a successful person who's just leveling up. After he achieves something, he levels up again. And he's a great example for that. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely reached the masses, changed lives, impact the world. And, that's why I did it, man.
So where do you see your podcast going?
The podcast is, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy the people that I get to meet, the credibility that it gives you, the access to people it gives you. As you know, like when the podcast, people come on your show that you would never have had a chance to talk to before. And so I look forward to using that as a tool and a vehicle to do that. So, I really don't know. I have a lot of things on the fire right now, and the podcast is not something that my intention of the podcast is for access to people and learning and knowledge.
Yeah. And
I don't use it to monetize directly. It's definitely a intrinsic value. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but
that's great, man. I appreciate that. And, oftentimes again, as you're listening to this and you're in any one of a number of communities that this is going to go out to, you don't have to have a direct result of, hey, I have a podcast, so I'm going to have a product that's going to go out to my community. It could be you're using it, as Mike is using it, you could just use it simply to make great relationships. I think it's a great proving ground to figure out who is, who you fit with. If you can have a 30 or 45-minute conversation with somebody and you can stay up to speed with them, or if you can develop a relationship as a starting point using your podcast, you don't necessarily have to have a direct monetization route to money. It is something that is, it is a brand builder for sure. And just looking at, if you're not watching this in video, you're watching this if you're listening to this in audio, I mean, Mike is branded as hell. I mean, he's got some really cool stuff behind him. And again, using your podcast as a platform to be able to, further, have your brand reach. It's excellent way to use it. And it's a great utilization, great tool for your brand as well, Mike.
Yeah. And content too. Like I use all mine for content, like repurposing 30-second, 60-second clips. I didn't ever even care about subscribers before. That's not something I ever was concerned or worried about. I always looked at as if I can just get the clips and then push it out and be omnipresent all over the place. And people they get followed around on the internet by C-Roc. That's the way I looked at it. I thought that was more impactful than subscribers.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show, and I'm wishing you a ton of success with Rocket Fuel. The book comes out. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes. Thanks again for being here, Mike.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate you, bud.
Thanks for listening to Sales Training for Podcasters. To get additional information and to access more amazing content that will boost your sales game, visit salestrainingforpodcasters.com. Hey, do us a favor. Rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thanks for listening.